Hey, Daryle the Toyota Guy here, and today I want to go over leasing, specifically 4 things as it pertains to leasing. 1, what is a lease? 2, what is the difference between leasing and purchasing? 3, the main benefits of leasing. And 4, what are the main requirements for leasing? So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so let's start with number 1. What is a lease? A lease is really nothing more than a rental agreement. It's a longer-term rental agreement as opposed to a regular rental car company. Usually you're going to do a lease for 24, 36 or 48 months, 2, 3, or 4 years. And you're going to be doing it through either a lender or the financing arm of a manufacturer. Now, unlike when you do a rental through a car company, you are going to be doing this on your own insurance and your credit comes into play. So we'll talk about that more in part 4, but that's really what a lease is. You're renting a vehicle for 2, 3, or 4 years on average. So let's go to number 2, the differences between leasing and purchasing a vehicle. Okay, so on to number 2. The main differences between leasing and purchasing. And specifically, I want to talk about 3 things. 1, the obligation, your obligation as the purchaser or lessee. 2, the taxes, and then 3, the options that you have with each scenario. So let's start with number 1, your obligation. Now, when you're leasing a vehicle, you usually have a shorter term or a short obligation as opposed to purchasing, which is a longer term or a long obligation. And the reason I say that is because when purchasing a vehicle, you're responsible for the entire cost of the vehicle. So if you did that in the same amount of time for leasing, your monthly payment would be astronomical. If apples being apples, same money down and everything, your payment would be astronomical. So what most people do when they're purchasing a vehicle to get those payments lower is you have to stretch out the duration that you're going to pay back the entire cost of that vehicle. So when you do that, you're usually looking at about 60 or 72 months on average, which is 5 years or 6 years. Now, when you're leasing a vehicle, you're only paying for the amount of the vehicle that you're paying for the difference between the capital cost and residual value. So that part, the depreciation in the middle there, that's what you're paying for. That's the rental price of the vehicle. And that's usually only 3 years. On average, that's how long people lease a vehicle for. So again, because you're not paying for the entire price of the vehicle, your obligation in leasing is a lot shorter than purchasing. Now, 2, taxes. When you purchase a vehicle, you're purchasing the entire vehicle. That's the price of as it pertains to the entire vehicle, and you have to pay your taxes on all of that. So if you have a $50,000 vehicle, you have to pay taxes on $50,000, as opposed to leasing a vehicle. When you lease a vehicle, remember, you're only paying for the depreciation part of between the capital cost and residual value. So whatever that is in between, the depreciation value, your rental, your leasing price, you only pay taxes on that amount. So if you're paying, say, $100 a month, just for easy math, you're going to pay 7% of taxes only on $100. Say in the state of Florida, you would pay $107. Whereas, like I said, when you purchase a vehicle, you're going to take the entire price, you're going to take the entire, you're going to tax that entire price, roll that all into one big price, and then that's going to be your monthly payment divided by those months. With a lease, you only pay what your monthly, with that depreciation cost, your lease value, your rental price each month. So you're going to pay a lot less in taxes when you're leasing a vehicle. And then number 3 is your options. Now, your options at the end of a purchase are simply you own the vehicle. So sure, you may be paying a lot longer duration for the vehicle, a longer obligation, but at the end, you own the vehicle. Now, with a lease, you don't own the vehicle. So at the end of your lease term, you have 3 options that you can do. 1, you can turn the vehicle in and just walk away. Just hand it back in, just like you would with a regular rental, say at like Avis or Enterprise or Hertz or something like that. Just turn the vehicle in, you're done. 2, you could actually buy the vehicle outright. You could say, okay, I actually want to keep this vehicle, I like it. Now you're going to get what's called you're going to get the residual value, which is going to be the total value of that vehicle with that, at that given point in time and the amount of miles on it. And you're going to either give cash or you're going to borrow money and just buy that vehicle outright. And then your 3rd option is you can actually trade it in toward a different vehicle. So for some manufacturers, some lenders, you can actually trade in a vehicle earlier than your turn-in time. So let's say you have 3 months on your lease and you just want to get out of the vehicle now, you can actually go to a dealership and they can take whatever, the cost of the vehicle, whatever it's valued at, use it as a trade-in, but then whatever the difference is that you owe for that lease, that's going to be your cost and that's going to be added on top. But you can purchase a different vehicle or even lease a different vehicle, even from a different manufacturer if you want, as long as there's no penalties in your contract. So you have three options if you think about it. You can turn it in and walk away, right? Like a walkaway lease. You can purchase the vehicle afterward, or you can actually, in certain circumstances, you can trade it in early and start a new lease, or you could purchase a new vehicle. Now with that, I'd like to go on to number 3, part 3, the benefits of leasing a vehicle. All right, so on to part 3, the benefits of leasing a vehicle. One of those benefits I already discussed in part 2, and that is the obligation, the term of the obligation to the vehicle. On average, a lease is usually 36 months or 3 years, as opposed to a purchase, which is 60 months or 5 years. So you're gonna have a shorter term obligation leasing versus purchasing. Another benefit is you're usually gonna have a lower monthly payment on a lease versus a purchase. Now this is credit dependent, but another reason that factors into this is because of how taxes are calculated. When you purchase a vehicle, you have to pay all the taxes of the vehicle price up front and then roll that into your auto loan in order to calculate your monthly payments. Whereas when you lease a vehicle, you only pay taxes on however much you're paying each month. So you're not paying taxes on the entire cost of the vehicle, just what you're paying each month. And then the third benefit, or the last benefit I want to mention, at least for this video, of leasing versus purchasing is usually on a lease, you don't have to put as much money down on the vehicle to reduce that monthly cost. And the reason is, again, you're not paying for the whole price of the vehicle. You're just paying for a depreciated amount between the capitalized cost, the beginning cost of the vehicle, and the price of the vehicle when you turn the vehicle in. Or let me look it up really quick here. I know I have written down the residual value. So that's the residual value, which is going to be the value of the vehicle after you turn it in. So you're only paying for that difference between those 2 points in time, whereas when you purchase a vehicle, you have to pay for that entire cost. So having said that, let's go on to part 4 and let's wrap this all up with what are the main requirements or what you should be aware of when you go in and you ask regarding a lease. All right, on to part 4, let's wrap this up with the main requirements for leasing a vehicle. Now, on average, when it comes to leasing a vehicle versus purchasing, you need to have average credit or better in order for a manufacturer or a lender to offer leasing as an option. As opposed to purchasing, you have a little bit more wiggle room. So if you want to consider leasing a vehicle, on average, you're gonna want an average or better credit score for that. Also keep in mind insurance. You're gonna need full coverage insurance on leasing just like you would purchasing. So you can't like reduce your deductibles or anything like that because you're gonna lease. You have to have full coverage, the same just as you would when purchasing a vehicle. And then the last one is you wanna make sure that you have some kind of a consistent income. So for example, if you're a contractor, say like Uber or a Lyft driver, that's not considered consistent income. So you're probably not gonna qualify for a lease. You may not even qualify for a purchase, but I think you'd have a much better chance at purchasing a vehicle than you would leasing, because leasing does require showing a consistent income. So those are really the 3 main requirements. You don't always have to have a down payment, but you do have to have an average or better credit score. You do have to have a consistent income, and you definitely have to have full coverage insurance. All right, and that wraps up this video. In this video, we talked about 4 things. We discussed what a lease was. 2, we talked about the differences between leasing and purchasing. 3, the benefits of a lease. And 4, what are the main requirements to lease a vehicle. So if you guys have any additional questions or you want me to delve into something further, just leave a comment below or ask a question below and I'll address it there. Or if I see enough need or enough people asking questions, I'll address it in a future video. So that's it for me, Daryle the Toyota Guy, and thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate it.